You're still playing with your little online shop. Mark's voice dripped with condescension as he loosened his Hermes tie, a Christmas gift I'd bought him with my supposedly frivolous earnings. I kept my eyes fixed on my laptop screen, watching. Another order notification pop up? The 15th that hour. Someone has to pay for your expensive taste in ties, I muttered under my breath. But he was already reaching for the whiskey decanter, too absorbed in his own importance to notice my comment. The crystal clinked against the glass as he poured himself a generous measure of the aged scotch I'd sourced through my growing network of luxury goods suppliers. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here he was, sipping whiskey I'd procured, wearing a tie I'd bought, lounging in an apartment partially furnished by my cute little hobby, as he called it. If only he knew that Luxe Lifestyle Imports, my supposedly insignificant side hustle, had just cleared 7 figures in quarterly revenue. Sarah from the office asked about your shop today, Mark continued, settling into his favorite leather armchair, another piece I'd imported. I told her you were still figuring things out. You know, finding your way. He chuckled, sharing a private joke with himself. She's looking for a promotion to junior partner. Now that's a real career move. I smiled tightly, thinking of the email I'd received earlier that day. Sarah, his colleague at Morgan & Reed Law, had actually placed a substantial order through my private client list, a service Mark didn't even know existed. She wasn't just looking for a promotion. She was looking to impress the senior partners with carefully curated luxury gifts. And she'd come to me, not her supposedly well-connected colleague. My phone buzzed quietly. Another notification from my business management app. The latest shipment from Milan had cleared customs, 3 days ahead of schedule, thanks to the streamlined import process I'd spent 2 years perfecting. That single shipment was worth more than Mark's monthly partner draw, but he still saw me as the same small-town girl who'd moved to the city with dreams of making it big. The partners are watching me for the executive committee, Mark announced, swirling his whiskey. Phillips mentioned it at lunch. 2, maybe 3 years, and I'll be making the real decisions. He gave me that patronizing smile I'd grown to detest. Then you can finally give up this little experiment of yours. If he'd been paying attention, he might have noticed how my hands stilled on the keyboard. The executive committee at Morgan & Reed was indeed making changes, but not the ones Mark expected. Through my private client network, I'd built relationships with half the senior partners' wives. They didn't just buy from me, they talked to me, confided in me, shared things their husbands discussed behind closed doors. I knew about the firm's planned restructuring, the move toward international markets, and their desperate need for connections in the luxury goods sector. I also knew they were quietly investigating several partners for expense account irregularities, including Mark's recent business dinners with a certain junior associate. Maybe you're right, I said softly, closing my laptop. Things are changing so fast these days. I didn't specify what things, but I was thinking of the meeting scheduled for next week with Morgan & Reed's managing partner. He didn't want to discuss Mark's future with the firm. He wanted to explore an exclusive partnership with Luxe Lifestyle Imports, a company he had no idea was run by a partner's unemployed wife. Mark drained his glass, already reaching for a refill. That's what I've been telling you, honey. Leave the business world to those who understand it. I'll take care of everything. I watched him pour another measure of my whiskey, remembering the day I started my company. He'd laughed then, too, calling it cute when I converted our spare bedroom into an office. The same office where I now managed a team of 20 employees, all working remotely, all carefully vetted, and none of them aware that their CEO was married to the most dismissive partner at Morgan & Reed. I should head to bed, I said, gathering my things. Big day tomorrow? Another craft fair? Mark smirked. Something like that, I replied, thinking of the international sourcing contract I was finalizing in the morning. A contract that would triple my company's revenue and establish direct lines with some of the most exclusive manufacturers in Europe. As I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, Mark called out, "Don't stay up too late with your little shop, honey. Some of us have real work to do tomorrow." I paused on the landing, allowing myself a small smile. Yes, things were definitely changing. And Mark's definition of real work was about to be severely tested. Morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my private office suite. Not the spare bedroom Mark thought I worked from, but a sleek space in a converted industrial building downtown. The exposed brick walls displayed framed articles from luxury magazines featuring luxe lifestyle imports, though none showed my face. As far as the public knew, LLI was run by a mysterious entrepreneur known only as E.L. Chen. "The Milan shipment is being processed now," Maya, my operations director, reported through our secure video call. "And the custom orders for the Morgan and Reed partners' wives are being expedited." She paused, a knowing smile playing at her lips. "Mrs. Phillips specifically requested that everything arrive before their anniversary gala next month." I nodded, pulling up the event details on my tablet. The gala wasn't just a celebration, it was where the firm would announce their international expansion plans. Plans that would require exactly the kind of luxury goods connections I'd spent years cultivating. "Any word from our contact at Preston & Shaw?" I asked, thinking of Morgan & Reed's biggest rival firm. They'd been aggressively courting LLI for months, unaware that their overtures were providing perfect leverage for my upcoming negotiations. "They've increased their offer by 20%, Maya confirmed. "They're getting desperate to establish a luxury goods pipeline before the Asian markets open up." My phone buzzed with a message from Mark. "Working late tonight, big case." I fought the urge to roll my eyes, knowing he was actually meeting the managing partner to lobby for that executive committee position, a position that would soon cease to exist in its current form. "The board meeting with Morgan & Reed is confirmed. For 2:00, Maya continued. "They're expecting E.L. Chen to attend via video conference as usual." "Actually," I said, reaching for the Chanel blazer hanging behind my desk, "I think it's time for a more personal touch. Have the conference room prepared. I'll be attending in person." Maya's eyebrows shot up. "Are you sure? If Mark finds out..." "Mark's too focused on his own ambitions to notice anything happening outside his corner office," I interrupted, thinking of the previous night's condescension. "Besides, it's time to move forward with Phase 2. Phase 2 had been in planning for months. While Mark climbed the partnership ladder, I'd been quietly positioning LLI as the premier luxury goods supplier for top law firms across the country. Our client list included senior partners' wives from every major firm in the city, all of whom shared invaluable information during their private shopping appointments. "The dossiers you requested," Maya said, sharing files to my secure server. Each document detailed the luxury spending habits of Morgan & Reed's executive committee members, information that would prove crucial in the coming negotiations. "Perfect," I murmured, scanning the data. "And the other matter?" "The private investigator's report came in this morning. Your husband's meetings with the junior associate weren't exactly professional. We have receipts, photos, everything." I closed my eyes, letting out a slow breath. I'd suspected Mark's indiscretions, but having confirmation still stung. Not because of any lingering emotional attachment that had died long ago under the weight of his constant belittlement, but because he'd been so careless, so convinced of his own invulnerability. "Add it to the file," I instructed, standing to check my appearance in the office's full-length mirror. The woman reflected back bore little resemblance to the small-town girl Mark loved to reference. In my tailored blazer and Louboutin heels, I looked every inch the CEO I'd become. "Maya, one more thing," I added, gathering my materials for the board meeting. "Have security ready at 2. Something tells me Mark won't take kindly to discovering his little hobby wife is actually E.L. Chen." As I closed my office door, my phone buzzed again, another message from Mark. Don't wait up, honey. Some of us have important meetings to attend. I smiled, slipping the phone into my designer bag. Another piece he assumed was a knockoff rather than from my own inventory. Yes, today's meeting would be important indeed, just not in the way Mark imagined. After all, the best revenge isn't just about proving someone wrong. It's about proving yourself right in ways they never saw coming. The Morgan & Reed lobby hadn't changed since my last visit 6 months ago, when Mark had paraded me around at the holiday party, introducing me as his creative wife who dabbled in online retail. The same marble floors reflected the same crystal chandeliers. But today, everything felt different. Today, I wasn't Mark Morrison's underestimated wife. I was E.L. Chen, CEO of Lux Lifestyle Imports, here to reshape the firm's future. Ms. Chen? A young associate approached, tablet in hand. The board is ready for you. I caught my reflection in the polished elevator doors. Chanel suit perfectly pressed, hair swept into a sophisticated chignon, expression carefully neutral. The security team Maya had arranged waited discreetly by the entrance, indistinguishable from the firm's own personnel. Mrs. Phillips called again. Maya's voice came through my earpiece as I followed the associate. She's insisting on a private viewing of the new collection before the gala. She mentioned something about Mark's promotion prospects. I suppressed a smile, thinking of the conversation I'd had with Janet Phillips at her last private shopping appointment. The managing partner's wife had been surprisingly candid about the firm's plans after her third glass of champagne. "Schedule it for tomorrow," I murmured. "After today's meeting, she'll have plenty to discuss." The associate led me to the executive floor's conference room, the same room where Mark had once hosted a dinner party, dismissively explaining to his colleagues that my business was still finding its footing. Through the glass walls, I could see the board members assembled, their expressions expectant. They thought they were interviewing a potential vendor. They had no idea they were about to meet their own partner's wife. "Send in the files," I instructed Maya, feeling my phone vibrate with the incoming documents. Each board member's personal dossier included their luxury purchasing habits, their wives' confidential wish lists, and the kind of detailed market analysis that only an insider could compile. The associate opened the conference room door, announcing, "Ms. E.L. Chen, CEO of Lux Lifestyle Imports." 8 heads turned simultaneously, their expressions shifting from polite interest to confusion to shock as they recognized me. William Phillips, the managing partner, recovered first. "Mrs. Morrison? There must be some mistake." "No mistake," I replied smoothly, taking my seat at the head of the table. "Though I typically go by E.L. Chen in business settings. Shall we begin?" "Does Mark know about this?" Thomas Bradford, another senior partner, sputtered. "Mark," I said, opening my presentation materials, "is about to learn several things about business, including how his little hobby wife built a company that grossed $30 million last year." The room fell silent as I projected my company's financials onto the screen. While Mark had been bragging about his corner office, I'd been building an empire that now supplied luxury goods to every major law firm in the city, except Morgan & Reed. "Your wives may recognize our work," I continued, pulling up images of exclusive events and custom collections. "Janet, your anniversary pearls. Last month? That was us. Barbara, the vintage wine collection for your husband's birthday? Also us." The partners exchanged glances, no doubt remembering countless conversations where Mark had dismissed my business acumen. I could almost see them recalculating their assumptions, reassessing every interaction. "Now," I said, sliding elegant folders across the table, "let's discuss how Lux Lifestyle Imports can help Morgan & Reed establish dominance in the Asian luxury market. Unless, of course, you'd prefer I accept Preston & Shaw's rather generous offer." Phillips leaned forward, his expression shifting from shock to keen interest. "Perhaps we should call Mark up to join us." Mark is currently having lunch with Jennifer Adams, I interrupted, sliding a discreet envelope toward him. Your junior associate? I have the receipts if you'd like to review them, but perhaps we should focus on business first. The managing partner's face darkened as he glanced at the envelope's contents. When he looked up, his eyes held new respect and a hint of fear. Please, he gestured to my presentation. Continue, Ms. Chen. I smiled, knowing that 3 floors below, Mark was probably rehearsing his executive committee speech completely, unaware that his career trajectory was about to take a very different turn. Let's talk about the future of luxury goods procurement, I began, and how Morgan & Reed can position itself ahead of the curve. The presentation was going exactly as planned. Each slide revealed another facet of LLI's dominance in the luxury goods market, each statistic hammering home what Mark had failed to notice for years. I watched the partners' expressions shift, from skepticism to recognition to barely concealed desperation as they realized the opportunity slipping through their fingers. These projections for the Asian market, Bradford interjected, studying the charts with newfound intensity. They're remarkable. And you already have the infrastructure in place? Fully operational, I confirmed, thinking of the warehouses in Singapore and Hong Kong that Mark assumed were Pinterest fantasies when he glimpsed them on my laptop. We've been running pilot programs with 3 major firms in the region. The results exceeded expectations by 40%. Phillips glanced at his phone, no doubt seeing the same notification I'd just received. Preston & Shaw had just announced their expansion into Asian markets, right on schedule. Their timing, orchestrated through careful leaks from my network, couldn't have been more perfect. Preston & Shaw, he muttered, looking up with barely concealed anxiety. They're moving faster than expected. Are they? I allowed myself a small smile. Or are they moving exactly as predicted? I pulled up another slide, this one showing Preston & Shaw's complete strategy, including details they thought were secret. Their plan has holes. Holes that LLI could help Morgan & Reed exploit with the right partnership agreement. My phone buzzed silently, Maya's signal. Mark had finished his lunch with Jennifer and was heading back to the office. Time to accelerate things. Of course, I continued, closing my presentation. Any partnership would require certain structural changes within Morgan & Reed. The partners stiffened. They knew what was coming. Their wives had been discussing the firm's outdated hierarchy for months during private shopping appointments. The executive committee, Mark's desperate goal, was a relic of the past. We've been considering modernization, Phillips offered carefully. Considering isn't enough, I replied, sliding another document across the table. This is our standard ethics and conduct agreement. You'll note the zero-tolerance policies regarding harassment, discrimination, and inappropriate relationships with subordinates. The message wasn't subtle. Phillips's eyes flickered to the envelope containing Mark's indiscretions, then back to me. These terms are quite specific. They are, I agreed, standing to pace the room. Just as specific as the terms your wives agreed to when they signed up for our VIP client program. The one that guarantees them exclusive access to limited collections, private shopping events, and discretion regarding their purchase histories. The threat hung in the air. Every partner in the room had a wife who'd confided in me, shared secrets over champagne and designer handbags, revealed things their husbands thought were private. I hadn't needed private investigators to build my dossiers. I'd simply provided a luxury shopping experience with a sympathetic ear. You've been planning this for years, Bradford realized aloud, respect and wariness mingling in his voice. I prefer to think of it as careful market research, I corrected, retaking my seat. Understanding your client base is crucial in luxury goods. Speaking of which, the conference room door burst open. Mark stood frozen in the doorway, his face flushing from red to white as he processed the scene before him. His wife at the head of the table, his partners gathered around. his career hanging by a thread he didn't even know was fraying. "What? What is this?" he stammered, his carefully cultivated authority crumbling. "What are you doing here?" "Hello, dear," I said calmly, enjoying the way his colleagues couldn't quite meet his eyes. "We were just discussing the future of Morgan & Reed. Your timing is perfect. We're about to review the new organizational structure." Phillips cleared his throat. "Mark, perhaps you should sit down." Ms. Chen, your wife, was explaining. "Some rather significant changes to our Asian market strategy." "My wife?" Mark's voice cracked on the word. "But she just has a little online shop." "Actually," I interrupted, projecting LLI's complete portfolio onto the screen, "I have an international luxury goods empire, one that's about to reshape this firm's entire approach to client relations. Shall we continue?" Mark gripped the back of the nearest chair, his knuckles turning white as he stared at the screen. Images flashed by. My company's global headquarters, warehouses spanning 3 continents, exclusive contracts with luxury brands he'd spent years trying to impress. Each slide stripped away another layer of his carefully constructed superiority. "This is impossible," he muttered, more to himself than the room. "You work from our spare bedroom. I've seen your little website." "You've seen what I wanted you to see," I corrected, nodding to Maya through my earpiece. On cue, the screen shifted to security footage from my actual office building. "That spare bedroom setup? It's for show. Just like your executive committee? Dreams." Phillips cleared his throat. "Mark, why don't you sit down? Ms. Chen, your wife, was just explaining how LLI can help us dominate the Asian luxury market. A market you assured us last month was, what was the phrase? Too volatile for serious consideration?" I watched Mark flinch at his own words being thrown back at him. How many times had he dismissed my suggestions about Asian market expansion over dinner? How often had he laughed off my naive understanding of international business? The partnership agreement, I continued, sliding another document across the table, includes a complete restructuring of Morgan & Reed's client relations department. We'll be implementing a new system for managing luxury client accounts with direct access to LLI's exclusive inventory. "Client relations is my department," Mark protested weakly. "Was your department," Bradford corrected, already scanning the agreement with keen interest. "These profit projections are extraordinary, and you say Preston and Shaw is prepared to match them?" "Exceed them," I confirmed, allowing myself a small smile. "Though their infrastructure isn't quite as robust as they believe. A fact their managing partner's wife shared during her private shopping appointment last week." My phone buzzed again. Maya's signal that Jennifer Adams had just received her termination notice. The junior associate's exit interview would include a detailed account of Mark's inappropriate behavior, carefully documented and time-stamped. Another piece falling perfectly into place. "You've been collecting information," Mark realized, his face draining of color. "All those shopping appointments, with the partners' wives, the private client events. I prefer to think of it as market research," I replied smoothly. "Understanding your client's needs is crucial in luxury goods. Speaking of which," I turned to Phillips, "how did Janet enjoy the advance preview of our fall collection?" The managing partner shifted uncomfortably, no doubt remembering his wife's enthusiastic spending at last week's private showing. "She was very impressed." "Most of our clients are," I agreed, pulling up a chart showing LLI's client satisfaction metrics. "Especially the ones who appreciate our discretion regarding their purchase histories and personal conversations." Mark's eyes darted between me and his colleagues, finally noticing their studied avoidance of his gaze. "William," he appealed to Phillips, "surely you can't be considering this. She's just—" "Just what, Mark?" I interrupted, my voice carrying an edge that made him step back. "Just your wife? Just a small-town girl playing at business? Just someone who built a $30 million company while you were busy mocking her ambitions?" The room fell silent. On the screen behind me, Footage played of Mark at various firm events, loudly dismissing my business acumen to anyone who would listen. Each clip had been carefully curated from security cameras, phone recordings, and social media posts, a greatest hits compilation of his condescension. The board will need to vote, of course, Phillips said into the silence. But, speaking for myself, I believe Ms. Chen's proposal merits serious consideration. Mark, given your personal connection to the situation, perhaps you should recuse yourself from these discussions. Personal connection? Mark's voice rose an octave. She's my wife. Actually, I said, removing my wedding ring and placing it deliberately on the table. As of this morning, I'm your soon-to-be ex-wife and your new business partner. Well, superior to be precise. Now, shall we discuss the terms of the restructuring? The divorce papers hit the conference table with a quiet finality. Maya had timed their delivery perfectly, another piece of choreography in this carefully orchestrated afternoon. Mark stared at the manila envelope as if it might bite him, his previous bluster deflating into stunned silence. You'll find everything in order, I said, my voice carrying the same professional tone I'd used to present market projections. Your attorney should be receiving his copy right about now. I took the liberty of using Preston and Shaw's family law. Division, they're quite thorough. Phillips winced at the mention of their rival firm. Perhaps we should take a brief recess. That won't be necessary, I interrupted, pulling up the next slide. The dissolution of my marriage and the restructuring of Morgan & Reed's luxury client services are separate matters, though both, coincidentally, involve removing outdated management structures. Mark finally found his voice. You can't do this. The prenup you insisted on? I smiled, remembering his smug certainty that he was protecting his assets from his small-town wife. The one that specifically excludes businesses established during the marriage from any claims? You really should have asked more questions about my little online shop. Bradford coughed discreetly. These Asian market projections? Perhaps we should focus on the business at hand? Of course, I agreed, watching Mark sink into a chair, his world imploding in real time. As I was saying, LLI's infrastructure in Singapore positions us perfectly for— My phone buzzed with an incoming text. Right on schedule, Jennifer Adams was being escorted from the building, her company laptop, already secured by IT. Mark's phone lit up moments later, but he seemed too shell-shocked to notice. Our client management system, I continued, integrates seamlessly with law firm protocols. Several of your colleagues' wives have already experienced this firsthand. Barbara, I believe your wife particularly enjoyed our private shopping concierge service last month? Bradford shifted uncomfortably, no doubt thinking of his wife's enthusiastic spending at the exclusive event and her equally enthusiastic sharing of firm gossip over champagne. The VIP client program, Phillips mused, studying. The proposal, this level of personalized service, it's exactly what we've been missing in the Asian market. And exactly what I suggested at your birthday party last year, I reminded Mark. When you laughed and told everyone I didn't understand international business dynamics. The memory hung, in the air, Mark holding court in our living room, regaling his colleagues with stories of my business mistakes, while wearing the watch I'd sourced through my Hong Kong connections. Maya's voice came through my earpiece. Jennifer Adams is requesting a meeting with HR. She's prepared to provide a full statement. Perfect. Every piece falling into place, every carefully laid plan executing flawlessly. I'd learned long ago that success wasn't about making noise, it was about quietly positioning your pieces until victory was inevitable. The board will need to review these proposals in detail, Phillips announced, gathering the documents with obvious interest, and discuss the personnel changes they necessitate. Of course, I agreed, standing to gather my materials. I have another meeting scheduled with Preston and Shaw tomorrow morning. I'll need your decision by then. Preston and Shaw? Mark's head snapped up. You're meeting with our competitors? Your competitors, I corrected. My potential clients. Though I must say their organizational structure is somewhat more progressive than Morgan and Reed's. No outdated executive committees to navigate. The barb hit home. Mark's face flushed as he realized his coveted committee position was evaporating, along with his marriage and professional dignity. One last thing, I added, pausing at the door. The keys to the Aston Martin are on your desk. Since it was purchased through LLI's corporate fleet program, I'll need it back. I'm sure you understand. Just business, after all. As I walked out, Maya's voice confirmed what I already knew. Jennifer Adams is singing like a canary to HR. And Mark's expense reports for the past 6 months just landed in Phillips's inbox. The foundation of Mark's carefully constructed world wasn't just cracking, it was about to come crashing down spectacularly, and I would watch it fall from the ideal. Top floor of my own empire, built piece by piece while he was busy laughing at my ambitions. The executive floor buzzed with barely contained chaos as I made my way to the elevator. Behind closed doors, urgent meetings were being convened, hasty phone calls placed, damage control initiated. The carefully constructed hierarchy of Morgan, and Reed was experiencing its first tremors of institutional earthquake. Janet Phillips is on line 1, Maya murmured through my earpiece. She's asking about the fall collection preview, but I suspect she's fishing for information about this morning's meeting. Put her through to my cell, I replied, stepping into the elevator. The managing partner's wife had always been an excellent source of information. Now it was time to use those carefully cultivated relationships to ensure the next phase went smoothly. Janet, darling, I answered as the elevator descended. I was just thinking about you. How did the board respond to that vintage Bordeaux collection you gifted them last month? The conversation that followed was a masterclass in subtle information exchange. Janet, eager to maintain her VIP client status, shared that an emergency board meeting had been called for 5 o'clock. In return, I hinted at exclusive access to our upcoming Milan shipment. Your security team reports Mark hasn't left the building, Maya updated me as I ended the call. He's been making calls from his office for the past hour. Should we activate monitoring protocols? No need, I smiled, thinking of the spyware already embedded in his company devices, courtesy of an IT upgrade I'd gifted the firm last Christmas. Let's see who he reaches out to first. The answer came before I reached the lobby. Mark had called his mother, his voice cracking as he tried to explain how his unemployed wife had outmaneuvered him professionally and personally. The recording would make an interesting addition to the evidence file, if needed. Jennifer Adams has finished her HR interview, Maya reported. The transcript is detailed. She's provided text messages, emails, and receipts from several unauthorized dinner meetings. Perfect. The junior associate's testimony would be the final nail in the coffin of Mark's executive committee aspirations. But that was just the beginning. Send the preliminary partnership agreement to Preston and Shaw, I instructed, sliding into the back of my waiting car. Make sure it arrives just as their board meeting ends. Let them think Morgan and Reed's hesitation has opened a door. The city scrolled past my window as we headed toward my real office. Every luxury boutique we passed, every high-end restaurant, every exclusive club, they were all part of my network now. While Mark had been building his reputation in the legal world, I'd been quietly constructing something far more valuable. An empire built on understanding what the truly powerful actually wanted. The other partners' wives are calling, Maya continued. Barbara Bradford, Elizabeth Chen, Patricia Foster, they all want to know if their private shopping appointments are still confirmed. Keep them scheduled, I replied, thinking of the information these women had shared over the years. But upgrade everyone to our Platinum Concierge service. Let's remind them of the value of our discretion. My phone buzzed with a message from Phillips. Board meeting moved to 3 p.m. Your presence requested via video conference. They were moving faster than expected, eager to salvage what they could of the situation. Mark had probably already discovered his expense account was frozen, his client files locked, his carefully cultivated image crumbling. "Your afternoon appointments?" Maya prompted. "Keep them," I decided, stepping into my private elevator at LLI headquarters. The partners need time to digest their options. Besides, I have other matters to attend to. Those other matters included finalizing the purchase of the building that housed Morgan & Reed's offices, another investment Mark had mocked as unrealistic when he'd glimpsed the plans on my laptop months ago. By the time the board meeting convened, I would own not just his company's future, but the very ground beneath his feet. "One more thing," I added, entering my office suite. "Send flowers to Jennifer Adams. White lilies, her favorite. Include a card with LLI's private client contact information. After all, everyone deserves a fresh start." My office at LLI headquarters felt different now that the masks were finally dropping. The hidden panel in my private bathroom slid open, revealing the full command center I'd built over the years. 3 monitors sprang to life, displaying real-time feeds from Morgan & Reed, surveillance of Mark's increasingly frantic movements, and the steady stream of communications flooding through the firm's networks. "Preston and Shaw's board just received our preliminary agreement," Maya reported, her image appearing on one of the screens. "Their managing partner is already calling an emergency session. The timing couldn't be better." I watched as Mark paced his corner office, phone pressed to his ear, trying desperately to reach contacts who suddenly wouldn't take his calls. His professional network, built on borrowed prestige and inflated self-importance, was evaporating faster than morning dew. "His credit cards?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "All corporate cards have been suspended," Maya confirmed, "and since most of his personal cards were tied to firm accounts." She left the implication hanging. Mark's expensive lifestyle had always been more facade than substance. My phone lit up with a message from Janet Phillips. "Just heard about Jennifer Adams. Is it true about the expense reports?" I smiled, thinking of the carefully orchestrated leak that had sent the firm's rumor mill into overdrive. "Tell her I'll discuss it at her private showing tomorrow," I instructed Maya. "Some revelations are best served with champagne." The surveillance feed showed Mark finally slumping into his chair, the reality of his situation sinking in. On his screen, he was pulling up his personal investment accounts I knew were heavily invested in Morgan & Reed's stock through the firm's partner program. "The stock is already responding to the rumors," Maya noted, sending me the latest market data. "Down 3% in the last hour. The partners must be getting nervous." They should be. The carefully timed leaks about potential restructuring had sent ripples through the legal community. By tomorrow, every major firm in the city would know that Morgan & Reed was in play and that LLI held the cards. Jennifer Adams' statement has been processed by HR, Maya continued. "They're scheduling an ethics committee review for tomorrow morning. Phillips wants to know if you'll testify." "No need," I replied, pulling up the file of evidence we'd accumulated. "The documentation speaks for itself. Though I'm sure Janet Phillips will have plenty to say about Mark's behavior at firm events. She's been dying to share those stories." A notification popped up. Mark was attempting to access his client files. The encryption I'd had installed during the last IT upgrade held firm, denying him entry to his own cases. Another piece of his professional identity stripped away. "His mother is posting on social media," Maya reported with a hint of satisfaction. "Apparently she's shocked and heartbroken by her daughter-in-law's betrayal. Should we respond?" "No need," I said, remembering all the times Mark's mother had smiled condescendingly at my cute little website. "The truth will be response. Enough. Besides, she might want to check her investment portfolio. I believe she took Mark's advice about buying firm stock last month." The afternoon sun cast long shadows across my office as I reviewed the next phase of our plan. While Mark's world crumbled, mine was expanding exponentially. The Asian market contracts, The real estate acquisitions, the strategic partnerships, everything I'd built while he dismissed my ambitions as mere hobby. The board meeting is in 30 minutes, Maya reminded me. They're expecting E.L. Chen to appear via video conference. I stood, smoothing my skirt and checking my appearance in the mirror. The woman reflected back bore little resemblance to the small-town girl Mark had loved to reference. In my Chanel suit and Louboutins, I looked every inch the CEO I'd become. Last thing, I added, gathering my materials. Have security ready to escort Mark out when the time comes. Something tells me he won't take kindly to learning who his new supervisor will be. The board meeting began with an atmosphere of barely contained panic. Through my secure video feed, I watched the partners file in, their usual confidence replaced by thinly veiled anxiety. Mark had been deliberately excluded, a fact that would become apparent to him very soon. Preston and Shaw just announced their Asian market initiative. Phillips opened, his voice tight with stress. They're claiming exclusive partnerships with major luxury brands. Are they? I allowed myself a small smile, thinking of the carefully crafted misinformation I'd fed their board through various channels. Perhaps we should examine their announcement more closely. With practiced precision, I shared my screen, displaying Preston and Shaw's press release alongside LLI's actual contract agreements. The partners leaned forward, their expressions shifting from concern to understanding as they realized the competing firm had just publicly committed to partnerships they didn't actually have. They're bluffing, Bradford breathed, the relief palpable in his voice. Not bluffing, I corrected. Falling into a carefully laid trap, one that Mark inadvertently helped create with his dismissal of the Asian market potential. On cue, Maya sent another notification. Preston and Shaw's stock had begun to waver as market analysts questioned their claims. The trap was springing perfectly. We need to move quickly, Phillips declared, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. The old power structure of Morgan & Reed was crumbling, and with it, their usual decision-making processes. Speaking of moving quickly, I segued smoothly. Let's discuss the HR committee's findings regarding Mark Morrison's indiscretions. The room fell silent as I shared Jennifer Adams's statement, along with the meticulously documented expense reports and surveillance footage. Years of Mark's subtle harassment, professional manipulation, and financial impropriety played out in damning detail. This is beyond an ethics violation, Bradford muttered, scanning the evidence. This is potential criminal liability, which is precisely why the restructuring agreement includes a comprehensive ethics overhaul, I pointed out, switching to the proposed organizational chart. You'll notice the executive committee has been replaced with a more modern governance structure. Mark's coveted committee position vanished with a single-slide transition. In its place, a streamlined leadership model emerged, one that positioned LLI as the firm's exclusive luxury client services partner, with me at the helm. The Asian market presence alone would justify this partnership, Phillips mused, studying the projections. But these client relationship protocols are already in place, I finished for him. Your wives have been beta testing them for months through our VIP program. Barbara, I believe your wife mentioned how much she appreciated the discreet billing arrangements? Bradford shifted uncomfortably, no doubt remembering his wife's enthusiastic spending at recent private shopping events. The other partners wore similar expressions, each of them realizing just how much information had been shared over champagne and designer handbags. My phone buzzed. Mark was attempting to join the meeting, his increasingly desperate messages flooding the firm's internal system. Maya's security protocols held firm, keeping him locked out of his own professional demise. There is, of course, the matter of Mark's position, Phillips ventured carefully. Already addressed, I replied, pulling up the final document. Given the ethics violations and the clear conflict of interest, he'll be transitioned to a non-client-facing role under my direct supervision. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who'd spent years mocking my business acumen would now report to me. assuming he could accept the demotion with better grace than he'd shown in previous situations. "And if he refuses?" Bradford asked the question they were all thinking. "Then Preston and Shaw's very public misstep provides an excellent opportunity to announce Morgan and Reed's exclusive partnership with LLI," I answered. "The market always appreciates a clear winner in any corporate rivalry." A notification flashed. Mark had finally gained access to the board meeting agenda. I imagined him staring at his screen, watching his professional world reshape itself without his input or consent. "Shall we vote?" Philip suggested, already knowing the outcome. The partners' expressions were clear. Their choice was between adaptation and obsolescence, and I'd left them only one viable path forward. "By all means," I agreed, watching Mark's increasingly frantic messages pop up on their phones. "Though perhaps we should have security ready. I believe my soon-to-be ex-husband is about to experience a rather significant career adjustment." The board's vote was unanimous, their decision sealed with digital signatures that would reshape Morgan and Reed's future. I watched through the surveillance feed as Mark finally managed to override the security protocols on his computer, just in time to receive the official notification of his new position. "He's accessing the document now," Maya reported, her voice carrying a hint of anticipation. "Security teams are in position." The effect was immediate and explosive. Through the video feed, I watched Mark's face contort from confusion to disbelief to rage as he read his new job description. Junior Associate, Luxury Client Services Division, reporting directly to E.L. Chen, CEO of Lux Lifestyle Imports. "That's impossible." His voice echoed through the executive floor as he burst out of his office. "This is my department. These are my clients." "Actually," I interrupted smoothly through the boardroom's speaker system, "they're LLI's clients now. Your former position has been eliminated in the restructuring, though we're generously offering you a chance to learn the business from the ground up, something you once suggested I should do, if I remember correctly." Mark spun toward the boardroom, his expensive suit wrinkled, his carefully styled hair disheveled. Security personnel moved quietly into position, following the protocols we'd established months ago. "You can't do this," he sputtered, looking desperately at his fellow partners. "William, Thomas, you know my work, my contributions." "Your contributions?" Phillips raised an eyebrow. "Like the Thompson account strategy you claimed credit for last quarter? The one your wife, Ms. Chen, actually designed?" Through my earpiece, Maya updated me on the market's reaction to Preston and Shaw's floundering announcement. Their stock was dropping steadily as analysts picked apart their empty claims about Asian market partnerships. Meanwhile, rumors of Morgan and Reed's exclusive deal with LLI had begun circulating in financial circles. "You've been lying to us for years," Bradford added, his tone carrying the weight of personal betrayal. "Taking credit for your wife's business insights while publicly mocking her abilities. The board has reviewed the evidence, all of it." Mark's face paled as he realized the extent of his exposure. "Evidence? What evidence? Would you prefer we start with the expense reports?" I offered, sharing a new document on the boardroom screen. "The unauthorized dinners with Jennifer Adams? Or perhaps the recordings of you sharing confidential firm information at various social events?" The security footage played silently behind him, years of his indiscretions, arrogance, and misconduct compiled into a damning highlight reel. Each clip had been carefully selected to demonstrate not just his ethical violations, but his profound professional misjudgments. "This is a witch hunt," he declared, though his voice had lost its usual authority. "I'll fight this. You'll what?" I interrupted. "Appeal to the ethics committee you've been systematically undermining? Contact the clients whose trust you've betrayed? Or perhaps you'd like to explain to the board why Preston and Shaw's managing partner's wife knows so much about Morgan and Reed's internal operations?" That last barb hit home. Mark had always been careless with sensitive information when trying to impress people at social events. Now those indiscretions had come back to haunt him. Your new position begins immediately, Phillips announced, his tone making it clear this was non-negotiable. That is, unless you prefer to resign? The choice hung in the air. Accept a humbling demotion under his wife's supervision, or leave with nothing. No golden parachute, no client relationships, no professional reputation to leverage elsewhere. You have 10 minutes to decide, I added, watching him process the complete dismantling of his carefully constructed world. Though I should mention, your company car has already been reassigned, your expense accounts frozen, and your client files transferred to the new management structure. Mark gripped the doorframe, his knuckles white. You planned this, he whispered. All of it. The private shopping events, the client relationships, the Asian market strategy. I built an empire, I corrected him, while you were busy laughing at my ambitions. Now, about that decision. 10 minutes can feel like an eternity when your world is crumbling. I watched through the security feeds as Mark paced the executive floor, his phone pressed to his ear, desperately trying to find an escape route. Each call went unanswered. His professional network had already received news of his downfall through carefully orchestrated channels. Preston and Shaw's stock has dropped 12%, Maya reported through my earpiece. Their board is demanding answers about the Asian market. Announcements. Perfect timing. I'd known their desperation would lead them to overplay their hand. Now, as their claims unraveled publicly, Morgan & Reed was perfectly positioned to announce their exclusive partnership with LLI. Your mother's on line 3, Maya added, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. She's seen the firm's preliminary press release. Apparently, she's having trouble reconciling her son's new position with all his stories about managing the department. I declined the call, focusing instead on Mark's increasingly frantic movements. He'd retreated to his office, soon to be relocated to a much smaller space on a lower floor, and was frantically searching through his files. He's trying to access the offshore account, Maya noted, monitoring his computer activity. The one he thought you didn't know about. Send him the transfer records, I instructed. Show him exactly when and where those funds were moved. Seconds later, Mark's face contorted as he opened the document. Every unauthorized transaction, every hidden deposit, every financial manipulation he'd thought was his secret. All of it. Meticulously documented and already addressed by my legal team. Janet Phillips is messaging him, Maya reported. She's canceling their dinner plans for next week. Apparently, she doesn't feel comfortable socializing with junior associates. The irony was delicious. Janet, who had shared so many of the firm's secrets during her private shopping appointments, was now deliberately twisting the knife. The social humiliation would be as complete as the professional one. Time's up, Phillips announced from the boardroom. Mr. Morrison, we need your decision. Mark emerged from his office, his expression cycling through the stages of grief in rapid succession. The security team moved closer, ready for any reaction. You really expect me to work for her? He demanded, his voice cracking on the last word. To report to my own wife? Soon-to-be ex-wife, I corrected through the video feed. And no, I don't expect you to work for me. I expect you to learn from this experience and find employment elsewhere, though your options may be limited given the circumstances. Limited? He laughed bitterly. I built this department. I have connections. You had connections, Bradford interrupted. But after today's ethics committee findings become public, those connections might not be so eager to associate with you. Right on cue, Maya sent another update. Jennifer Adams' statement had been processed by HR, with copies sent to the State Bar Association. Mark's professional reputation wasn't just damaged, it was radioactive. Of course, I added, watching him process the full extent of his situation. There is the matter of your significant investment in firm shares that might be affected by any negative publicity surrounding your departure. The threat wasn't subtle. Mark's personal wealth was largely tied to Morgan & Reed stock that would take a hit if his misconduct became public. The same. stock his mother had invested in on his advice. "You planned this," he whispered, realization finally dawning. "Every detail, every connection, every trap. How long?" "How long have you been mocking my business acumen?" I countered. "How many? Dinner parties did you spend belittling my ambitions? How many times did you laugh at my cute little hobby while wearing the watches I sourced and drinking the whiskey I imported?" Phillips cleared his throat. "Your decision, Mr. Morrison. The press release goes out in 5 minutes either way." Mark slumped against the wall, the fight draining from him as reality set in. His career, his reputation, his carefully constructed image of success, all of it hung by a thread I now controlled. "I'll take the position," he muttered, defeat evident in every syllable. "Excellent," I responded, my voice carrying the same professional tone he'd used to dismiss me countless times. "HR will send your new contract shortly. Oh, and Mark, don't be late Monday morning. I run a very tight ship." The press release hit the newswires at exactly 4:30 p.m., sending shockwaves through the legal and luxury goods communities. "Morgan & Reed announces exclusive partnership with Luxe Lifestyle Imports," the headline declared, followed by details of the restructuring that would reshape both organizations. "Preston & Shaw's board is in emergency session," Maya reported as I watched the market reactions cascade across my monitors. "Their Asian market strategy is unraveling publicly. 3 major clients have already called to question their claims." I smiled, thinking of the careful groundwork we'd laid. Every leaked document, every strategic misstep we'd guided them toward, had led to this moment. Their desperation to compete had made them predictable. "Jennifer Adams's interview with the ethics committee has been transcribed," Maya continued. "The partners' wives are already discussing it in their private chat group. Janet Phillips is being particularly detailed in her commentary." The social fallout was spreading faster than even I had anticipated. Mark's carefully cultivated image, as the firm's rising star, was being rewritten in real time, each revelation adding new layers to his humiliation. "His office?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Being relocated to the 3rd floor," Maya confirmed. "Next to the junior associate's bullpen. His personal items are being packed as we speak." Through the security feed, I watched Mark, standing in his soon-to-be former office, staring at the movers efficiently boxing up his awards, his credentials, his artifacts of imagined importance. Each item had been photographed and logged, evidence for any future disputes. "The Thompson account called," Maya added. "They want to schedule a meeting with you, not your soon-to-be ex-husband, to discuss their luxury client services needs." Of course they did. The Thompson account had been mine all along, guided through carefully orchestrated suggestions that Mark had claimed as his own brilliant insights. Now they would know who had really been behind their success. "Schedule it for next week," I instructed, "and make sure Mark is assigned to take notes during the meeting. It's time he learned how client relationships actually work." My phone buzzed with a message from Barbara Bradford. "Drink soon. I have so many questions about the VIP program and other things." The partners' wives were already repositioning themselves, ensuring their access to LLI's exclusive services wouldn't be affected by their husbands' professional adjustments. "Mark's mother is on her 3rd social media post," Maya reported, suppressing a laugh. "She's vacillating between defending her son's stellar career and asking if her VIP shopping privileges will be impacted. Send her our new client agreement," I decided, the one with the strict confidentiality clauses. Let's see how quickly she changes her tune. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the city as I prepared for my next move. The Morgan & Reed partnership was just the beginning, a stepping stone to larger acquisitions we'd been quietly positioning for months. "Your new office at the firm will be ready on Monday," Maya noted. "Corner suite, executive floor, the same one Mark always talked about earning someday." Poetic justice, considering how many times he'd described his path to the top while dismissing my business as a hobby. Now he would watch me walk into the office he'd coveted, while he adjusted to his new cubicle 3 floors below. The divorce papers have been updated, Maya continued. They now reflect your current position as his superior at Morgan & Reed. Legal thinks it's an unprecedented situation. Everything about this is unprecedented, I replied, watching the market continue to respond to our announcement. Morgan & Reed's stock was climbing steadily, while Preston & Shaw's continued its decline. A notification popped up. Mark had finally left the building, escorted by security to ensure he didn't remove any sensitive materials. His company car had already been repossessed, his keycards reprogrammed, his access reduced to match his new junior position. Send tomorrow's orientation schedule to his personal email, I instructed Maya. He'll need to complete the same training as any other junior associate. After all, as he so often told me, success comes from learning the business from the ground up. The irony of using his own condescending advice against him wasn't lost on anyone. Monday morning would bring a new reality, one where Mark would learn exactly what it meant to work for the woman he'd spent years underestimating. Monday morning arrived with the crisp certainty of autumn and absolute power. I stood in my new corner office at Morgan & Reed, watching the sunrise paint the city skyline in shades of victory. The same view Mark had coveted for years now served as my backdrop for what promised to be a very interesting day. Mark's arrived, Maya reported through my earpiece. He's been waiting in the lobby for 20 minutes. Security is enforcing the new protocol. Junior associates can't access the building until 8:30. I smiled, remembering how many times he'd mocked my lack of understanding about corporate hierarchy. Now he was experiencing it firsthand, standing among the employees he'd once dismissed as beneath his notice. The orientation schedule, I asked, though I'd reviewed it personally. 4 hours of compliance training, followed by a detailed review of LLI's luxury goods authentication processes, Maya confirmed. Jennifer Adams will be conducting the first session. She seemed quite enthusiastic about the opportunity. Perfect. The junior associate he'd manipulated was now responsible for his basic training. The psychological impact would be exquisite. Mrs. Phillips called, Maya continued. She's hosting a lunch for the partners' wives tomorrow and wanted to ensure her LLI VIP status remains intact. She also mentioned having some interesting stories about Mark's previous client interactions. Upgrade her to our Platinum Concierge service, I instructed. The same for any partners' wives who prove particularly helpful during this transition period. My phone buzzed with updates from the financial markets. Preston & Shaw's stock had dropped another 8% as more clients questioned their Asian market claims. Meanwhile, Morgan & Reed's announcement of our exclusive partnership had sparked a surge of interest from international investors. The moving company delivered the last of Mark's office items to his new cubicle, Maya reported, including the awards he claimed credit for, the ones based on your strategic planning. Through the security feed, I watched Mark finally enter the building, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. The designer suit he wore, purchased with the corporate card he no longer possessed, looked out of place among the junior associates he now joined. His new supervisor is ready, Maya added, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. Sarah Chen from our Hong Kong office will be managing the junior associates remotely. She's prepared a rather extensive training program. Sarah had her own score to settle. 2 years ago, Mark had dismissed her market analysis as culturally naive. Now she would oversee his education in international luxury goods procurement, with particular emphasis on Asian business etiquette. The Thompson account representatives are in the lobby, Maya noted. They're early for their meeting, the one where Mark will be taking notes. Have them escorted to the executive conference room, I instructed, and make sure Mark's seat is at the auxiliary table. It's time he learned the value of careful observation. A notification popped up. Mark's mother had finally gone quiet on social media, her silence purchased with the promise of continued access to LLI's exclusive collections. Amazing how quickly priorities shifted when personal interests were at stake. Janet Phillips is spreading the word about our new client appreciation events, Maya reported. The partners' wives are practically competing for invitations. Barbara Bradford has already promised to share some particularly interesting insights about her husband's recent merger negotiations. The sun had fully risen now, illuminating my office, my domain. On my desk, next to the latest Asian market projections, sat a frame holding the business card Mark had once mockingly designed for my little online shop. I'd kept it as a reminder, a trophy of sorts. Mark's requesting a private meeting, Maya said. He seems to think he can negotiate. A better position. Schedule him for next week, I replied, watching him fidget in his new cubicle through the security feed. After he completes his basic training, as he always told me, you have to earn your opportunities in this business. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, least of all Mark, who was about to discover just how thorough my business education had actually been. 6 months passed like a well-orchestrated symphony, each movement bringing new developments in Mark's education and humility. I stood in my executive office, watching the winter sun set over the city that had witnessed his downfall and my ascension. Theor's final divorce papers are ready for your signature, Maya reported, placing the documents on my desk. Mark's attorney advised him to accept the terms without contest. Apparently, the evidence file we compiled was quite persuasive. I smiled, thinking of the comprehensive documentation of his years of condescension, financial manipulation, and professional misconduct. The same behaviors he'd once dismissed as cute when I took detailed notes at dinner parties had become the architect of his surrender. His performance review? I asked, though I'd already read Sarah Chen's thorough assessment. Below expectations in client relations, needs improvement in international protocol, and significant concerns about his ability to adapt to organizational hierarchy, Maya recited. Though Sarah notes he's finally learned to properly document luxury goods authentications after his third remedial training session. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. The man who once commanded boardrooms now struggled with basic inventory reports. His designer suits had given way to business casual as his reduced salary forced lifestyle adjustments. The Thompson account meeting went well, Maya continued. They were particularly impressed with your strategic insights for their Asian expansion. Mark's notes were adequate, though he seemed uncomfortable when they praised your leadership. Of course he was uncomfortable. Every client meeting served as a reminder of how thoroughly he'd underestimated me. Each successful strategy I implemented echoed back to conversations where he'd dismissed my suggestions as naive. Janet Phillips sent an interesting update, Maya added, a hint of amusement in her voice. Apparently, Mark's mother tried to leverage her social connections for his promotion. She seemed surprised to learn that her luxury shopping privileges were contingent on maintaining professional discretion. The social realignment had been fascinating to observe. The same women who had once politely endured Mark's condescending business advice now wielded their VIP client status as subtle weapons, their influence reshaping the firm's social hierarchy. Preston and Shaw made another overture, Maya reported. They're offering significant concessions to gain access to our Asian market infrastructure. Decline, I instructed, watching Mark through the security feed as he struggled with a client presentation 3 floors below. Their desperation is worth more than their partnership. The market had proven me right. While Preston and Shaw's hasty expansion crumbled, Morgan and Reed's stock had soared under the LLI partnership. The same financial experts who had once endorsed Mark's leadership now wrote glowing analyses of my strategic vision. Your mother-in-law, soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law, has requested a meeting, Maya noted. Something about preserving family connections despite professional differences. Schedule her for the next VIP client event, I decided. Let her see exactly what her son dismissed as a cute little hobby. A notification popped up. Mark had finally completed his basic training modules. His request for a department transfer had been denied. Sarah Chen insisted he needed at least another 6 months of remedial instruction in Asian business customs. The executive committee dissolution is complete, Maya confirmed. The new organizational structure has been fully implemented. Mark's former allies have been surprisingly adaptable to the new hierarchy. Of course they had. Success bred loyalty, and LLI's partnership had brought unprecedented growth to Morgan & Reed. The same partners who had once laughed at Mark's jokes now carefully cultivated their wives' relationships with my company. One last thing, Maya added, her tone carrying satisfaction. Remember the crystal whiskey decanter Mark was so proud of? The one he claimed you couldn't appreciate properly? I nodded, recalling his countless lectures about fine spirits and luxury goods, all while drinking whiskey I had sourced. He tried to take it from his old office. Security confirmed it's actually an LLI product, purchased through your corporate account. It's been returned to the executive floor. The perfect metaphor for our entire relationship. Mark claiming ownership of things he never truly understood, while I built an empire around his blind spots. Now that decanter would sit in my office, a reminder that success isn't about who talks, the loudest, but who plans the most carefully. Send the final divorce papers to his cubicle, I instructed, watching the city lights begin to twinkle. It's time to close this chapter completely. After all, I have an empire to run.